Oh,
We are live. We are live. Yes, we're doing everything on live. But again, once again, we're back on the Reentry Connect podcast here talking about recidivism. We have Miss Sheena in the house and we have Miss Sarita. You already know the originals, the greatest, the great
oh,
articulators, ones with a lot of knowledge. They're here tonight just to, share things about the recidivism. Yes, before we get started, I want to shout out GPS Transportation. If you guys are in the city of Philadelphia and you need 5-star transportation, feel free to contact them at gpstransportation.net, 215-774-9913. They're the best in the city, best in the tri-state, best to go everywhere. All right, another shout out to Old Dad, one day at a time. Looking for any recovery services, if you're looking for reentry support, if you're looking for any of the above, feel free to contact them as well. Shout out to Mel Wells. We appreciate you so much. But without further ado, let's get into it. I'm your host, Keenan Hudson. We're talking about recidivism.
yep.
What does recidivism mean?
I mean,
I'll
going
take
back to
over.
prison.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk.
Simple.
Sarita
Go
talk.
ahead, Sarita.
Yeah. Okay. So recidivism is a cycle in which people return to prison. There's lots of studies about it. There's lots of statistics that go into it. But in reality, it's people who are broken, people that are traumatized. They're not getting the help that they need. Maybe they're caught up in drugs. Maybe there's, a deeper mental illness there. But at the same time, there's things that fuel recidivism out here, like lack of housing, lack of transportation, lack of housing, of employment. So if I come out of prison, I've got all these hopes and dreams and ambitions, and I can't get a job to take care of myself, then, not everybody is resilient, especially after being beat down in the penitentiary. Now, Sheena, I'm sure you have a better definition, but that's fine. You get beat down and then you come out and you get beat down. It's hard to stand back up.
I think recidivism rate comes from a lot of times. So I spent 25 years in prison. And even when I came home, I knew going back to prison for me was not an option because I had done 25 years. I learned, but sometimes I think that people get discouraged. Like you said, they get discouraged. They can't find housing. They just get discouraged. They can't, get a job. I couldn't even get a job at Burger King. The frustration and rejection everywhere you go because you're carrying this around with you. And so I think what happens is people give up because they're like, you know what? Nobody believes in me. Nobody's going to let me change. Even our own family, people come home to our own family members treating us like we were the people that went in, and we're not. We're the people that went in and worked on our trauma, worked on different aspects, took classes to better ourselves, but we came back out to the same trauma that probably most likely led us into addiction and there. And so I think that people sometimes just can't deal with the stress. They can't deal with the rejection. And sometimes it feels like prison was easier. And unfortunately, so I think that recidivism rate just comes down to people giving up on themselves because too many people have already given up and labeled us that we're no good. And so they don't give them a chance.
Yeah. And it's hard to come up against stumbling blocks when you expect that, hey, I've served this time. It's behind me. I'm ready to move on. But the world isn't ready to move on with you. It's disheartening and it's sad.
Yeah. And I believe too, like you said, with that recidivism rate, the recidivism rate being so high is definitely due to people actually not experiencing responsibility, not experiencing the things of everyday life. And some have experienced before going to prison, but being pushed back so far, it's like, wow, where do I turn? I want everything now. I have children to support. I have a roof I need to keep over my head. I want everything right now in the moment. But it's like things don't just come to you that way. So, like you said, people resort back to the things that they used to do. They resort back, to things, especially when they don't have the proper resources. And a lot of places, for the most part, have resources. You have shelters that you can go to and live in temporarily. You can go to these temp agencies and get certain temporary jobs until you find something permanent. You have these different classes that helps you with your communication skills and your socializing and things like that. But sometimes people don't want to take advantage of that.
That's true. But I will remember back, Keenan, you were talking about the first place you got. You had to have someone put it in their name.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
So Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in rural areas, that's not true, though. There are no resources. That is why one of the reasons we want to start PrEP, we want to target the rural areas where there are no resources for people, where there isn't nothing going on. And also with the reentry that we're developing now is also for long timers come home, because see, we talk about people coming home that's been sentenced 20, 30 years ago are coming home now. And we haven't built resources for that specific yet. You know, I think we talk about trauma a lot, and people deal with a lot of trauma inside prison. So now we have to come out, figure out who we are, deal with the trauma of being in prison, and then deal with the trauma that we left in the first place. And so, and I think also, you know, for me personally, I built a family while I was in prison. So when I came home, I didn't know this family. But the family I built in prison, they were my support. They were my advocates inside. They were the ones who led me. They're the ones who mentored me. They were my mamas, my aunts, my sisters, you know. And so when I came home, I felt very alone. I felt depressed. I felt like I couldn't function because my family, my support system, they were still inside. And so it's very hard to figure out who you are now out here. And I think that people, when they try to navigate that, it gets difficult.
You know, I will just speak to, when I got out, it was hard for me because I didn't want to admit that I was so far behind. So, you know, there's even restaurants where they're like, scan the QR code for the menu. Yes. And you know, and I was like, oh no, my son had come to pick me up when I first got out. So me and him were like, you know, really tight. We still are. But I mean, those couple of days we were just attached. So we went to Wendy's and they gave me a cup. So I go over and I'm looking for that thing where, you know, you just push it up there and it's something where you set it down and it had a screen, and he came right over. He said, Mom, I got you. And he just did it to where I would have stood there forever. Like,
I did stand there forever and just kept saying, Dr. Pepper. I thought I talked to it. Do you remember? So all of us were incarcerated for a minute. Do you all remember when the toilet flushed by itself and you were like, what happened? How'd that just happen? Who's in my stall? Somebody's about to get it. You know what I mean? Like what's going on here? That's another thing too. People out here are disrespectful. So let's talk, you know, even inside, we may not get along. We may not even like each other, but there's a respect there. There's respect there. There's a common ground there. And when we come in, and yes, we have boundaries. We have boundaries that we set in there. People respect those boundaries. And out here, people forget that. And I think when we come out, we have been in an environment where respect matters, boundaries matter, things like that. And when we come out here, that's not happening out here.
No. No, that just really shows where the world's at, though, and the younger generation as well. Hey, Bea!
What's up?
Hey!
He was supposed to have been here before. What was the people name we was waiting for behind stage?
We were looking for Biplop.
Biplop.
You know? And we were looking for Biplop.
Yeah.
That's a true story audience. That's an individual that, you know, you know, we're all trying to work together, but we didn't see Biplop. We see Bea. How you doing?
I'm good. Good.
Why do you think people recidivist? They go back. What is your opinion there?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a piggyback on what Sis said about trauma, right? What I know about trauma in regards to how the two phases that you described, it's another trauma about being home, like what we just talked about in regards to the things that was the collateral consequences of our actions. Like, it was so traumatic to be in the store and you got to use the kiosk and you don't even know that it's a kiosk there, you know. Like, it's just so much. Like, for me, I'm still almost 2 years home and I still have to verify my identity. Like, I can't even, you know, apply for my income taxes. I'm 2 years, all these jobs I done had, I was working 2 jobs, then go from this job, advance to that job. Like,
is it because they think you're still incarcerated?
Yeah, and let's explain that. Yeah, explain that if you want to touch on it. I want to too. But go ahead, explain
so that. The thing is, I was a child when I got incarcerated. So I never had any form of state identification. I never filed for any income taxes. I never had a job. So I come home 25 years later and they like, who are you? I never filed for the stimulus in prison because I thought it was some illegal activity. You know, I'm not supposed to be filing for that. I'm wait till I get home. I get home and they like, who are you? We don't believe you.
Right.
And now I got to show up in person to verify my identity with my documentation, with my birth certificate and my social security card to prove
And
who
that
I am.
Yeah, and that can be a crucial thing. So those who are the viewers that are listening, like, and you're about to come home, if you've never had credit, if you never had any type of bills in your name, if you never even apply for anything on your own, best believe you're going to have to verify yourself. Because I had to do that
Yep.
when I came home. The same situation
Yeah.
Bay I was in as well, and like Machine, I'm saying she agrees as well. You know, you won't be able when you get your W-2s, you go to file your taxes and you'll get a letter from the IRS saying, yo, we don't know who you are, where you been at all these years. Why haven't you been paying taxes? Did you come from another country? Are you an immigrant? We don't know.
That
So you have to
the
go
crazy.
down to, you're gonna have to go down to the actually, to the IRS building, wherever is
Yeah.
locally, whichever one is near to you. You're going to have to take your identification, your social security card, and in some cases, you're going to have to take your birth certificate just to
Yep.
verify self.
Well, let me
So,
tell you, it's because
uh-huh.
they treat us like we are immigrants. They treat us
No,
like we're not
Well,
from this country. You know what I'm saying? And
well,
here's the thing: immigrants belong here just like we do, but we are actually returning citizens. You know what I'm saying?
yes.
Like
Yes.
I sat here in this penitentiary that I was sentenced to, and now I'm home, and I have to show you once more that I'm a person because you've taken that from me. So I tell
Exactly.
people, like, I work like I immigrated with just the clothes on my back, because when I left out of those gates, that's basically what
That's
I
all
had.
you had.
That in
Yeah.
the will to succeed and not to give up. But at the same time, that's a stumbling block. That's a stumbling block, Sheena. That's a stumbling block, Keenan. You know what I'm saying? And where is the caseworker that, these caseworkers, when we're in prison, they don't really do a lot. Why is there no type of, hey, so here's your new person, the PO? No, you need someone to kind of help you navigate things like that. Because, like I said,
Exactly.
I went with a girl. She had been in 15 years. I tried to, help her to go look for a job. And I was trying to show her how to scan the QR code. This is Riri when she got out. And she says, they don't have paper applications. And I'm
I
like,
said the same thing.
they don't. So
absolutely.
where is that? We're
The
only verifying
technology.
yourself, but it's hard.
Yeah, and it's crazy because when I was in prison, there was a certain teacher that I always mention where he was actually a computer teacher, but he was trying to get these certain technologies in there just so we can have that
Yeah.
understanding once we return to society. But the prisons would always say, "Oh no, we don't want them to understand how not getting on the internet, but how to use the internet or how to
Mhm.
do certain graphic
Yeah.
design sites."
Yeah.
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 Us too.
So it's like, well, how are we going to get adjusted to the outside world? Actually, Mr. Michael McGaw was actually the first person
No doubt.
to
No
actually
doubt.
get
No
smart
doubt.
screen, the big
Yeah.
smart screen in there to show, hey, this is how it works. A smart screen goes like
Yep.
this. You touch screen it, and he was doing something like I remember one time it blew my mind. That's how I knew technology was just going to be out the window. Where
Yeah, out the window.
he wrote something with the pen on a smart board, and then something he did, he circled it and then hit something, and then it came out to the actual letters that he wrote. And I was thinking, like, whoa, but this was the stuff he wanted to prepare us for
Yeah.
that we just knew nothing about because we were like dinosaurs.
Mhm.
We went away
Hey,
when it was
hey,
flip phones and little Sprint PCS and all that. Man,
Uh-huh.
that stuff is ancient. I came home, I'm thinking, they said, yo, you need a Bluetooth. I'm thinking I had to go to the dentist and get it. I said, what a Bluetooth? I'm thinking there's something because they say, yeah, you could talk to it while you're not touching the phone. So I'm thinking it's something you
yeah.
put in your tooth. And so then they
Yeah.
you talking out your mouth. So I actually thought that. They said, no, that's what it's called. You use the device, when you're not close to it. And that's what, and like I say, technology has blew our minds. And some people are afraid of that. Some people are afraid of technology. There's people that I've seen been down for 50 years, come home, hear a car alarm, they jump.
No
Because
doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
that's how serious, it is. And people, again, I believe Shawshank Redemption is probably the best movie to really show how a
Re-entry.
person is after spending so many years in prison. That's how it really feels. Then you
Yeah,
wonder
when
why
Woodsy went
Bernie
out and killed himself.
killed himself. You wonder why Wishacon wind up running. They go into the supermarket to make pennies. You 60, 70 years old. What you doing going to the supermarket to make pennies? You really at retirement age. How you gonna survive off of that? So that's just some of the things, why people would rather stay comfortable in jail. Like, look, you don't have no responsibilities. You don't have to pay a bill. You don't have to pay anything. You could just go to the child hall, eat for free. You're not learning no responsibility.
Now I'm gonna have to stop you right there, okay? Because you just completely given up on everything if you feel like that's the way to live. And I feel like a lot of those officers that were running around were like, "Oh, look at these girls in here. They're just living all carefree and happy." No, I want to be at home with my son. I want to be able to have someone call me and my family if something's going wrong. And if someone passes and I want to talk on the phone all night, I don't have to go to my room because it's count time. I get to actually choose who's in my environment. So there are individuals, and I want to say this too, if you've done a long time and you go back, then most likely you're institutionalized. And institutionalization is a serious mental illness, and they don't do enough investigation or study into it. Because I feel like there's nobody that's the stereotype that we go into prison and it's so nice at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. When they let you out, you did not want to be there because they gave you a free meal and someplace warm to eat or someplace warm to sleep. Did you? Absolutely not. I didn't want to be there. I kept all those meals and I would have slept outside.
But for people, Sarita, that were people that went in like at a young age and do a lot more time, like they never lived. Like, so Keenan was like 15. Bayat, how old were you?
18.
18. I was 17. So we hadn't lived on our own yet, really, where, I mean, we might have moved out early and did those things, but most of the time when you're that young, you're going couch to couch and doing this. You didn't get your first apartment. You didn't do all those things,
And no disrespect. No disrespect.
I think that, well, and I think that sometimes people,
nice. It's not nice in there.
People find that comfort in there because they don't have to go spend 12. When I got out and I go and I look at toilet papers, $15 for some damn toilet paper, like what, or things I used to do. I used to leave lights on all the time, not thinking about I have to pay electric bill now, or I left the water running, not thinking that I needed to turn it off. Choices are real hard out here. I've been home 6 years. And if you take me to a restaurant like Subway or Chipotle, these places that you have to choose a lot, it takes me 20 minutes to find something on the menu I might eat. If you take me to a place like Subway, my fiance took me and I had a meltdown. Like, why would you bring me somewhere where I had so many choices? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So those small things that don't seem overwhelming to people, when you've been incarcerated for a long period of time, especially as a kid, and you come out and they're like, well, what kind of cheese do you want? What kind of meat you want on there? What kind of shell do you want? And you're like, listen, I just want you to put stuff in a burrito and throw it together and give it to me. Okay. Because at this point, you have overwhelmed me. I don't even know what I want. When I first got out, I got a headache because they took me to Casey's, the little general store. It was so colorful. I wasn't even used to these bright colors because where we were drab. I immediately got a headache because I was not used to brightness or people being around me, people moving behind my back too quick. Those are things that, when you come out, that people are like, man, it's easier in prison because they haven't quite learned who they are again out here.
And it is
I want to add on to that because it's another element of the psyche in regards to being incarcerated. It's not just that people like the way that they live because of the lack of responsibility, but it's also the fact that they done created themselves in prison. and they this person that they never was inside on the streets, and they comfortable with that life. You know, it's not just that, oh, jail is wonderful and this that. It's
Right.
just like a sub community inside of our
Yes.
community. You
Well, I
know, it's
came
a
up with
whole
a name
different.
for it.
It's like virtual reality. It's like
Yeah.
virtual reality.
This was
Like
the
you
name
in
I used
here,
to call it. I
you're a
said
whole nother person.
people are in the penitentiary. They pretend that
Yeah,
they had lives they never led. They drove cars
yeah,
they never had. They had rapper
yeah.
boyfriends they never really had. They live in the
No doubt.
penitentiary. So these
Yeah,
penitentiary people, that is the life for them. And I'm sure, and I think me and Keenan talked about this, when you see somebody coming back and they're like, yeah, I'm back. That's sad. That's depressing.
It
You're
is.
not a
Yeah.
star
But
because you
they
came back.
do that. They do that a lot of times because that's for the first time in prisons when they felt a family dynamic. They felt
Yeah.
love maybe for the first time. They felt accepted for who they were for the first time. So I
Yeah.
think that's why when people do go back, they have that excitement like, "Hey, I'm back." And it's like I see my family, I see comfort. I know what I'm doing every day. I know every single day I'm getting up, I'm getting counted. I go to chow. I got to go to work. I'm going to go play prison softball and prison volleyball. Like I'm going to get out date. I'm going to,
Yep.
and then you're teaching classes. When I came home, I didn't know who I was. It took me from 17 to 42 in prison, and I figured out who I was. I was aerobics instructor. I was the Christian facilitator. I taught ICBC. I taught all these classes. I knew who I was as a person, as a woman. I knew who I was. And I got out here and I didn't know who I was or where I belonged. And wherever I went, I never felt like I belonged. I'd be in a room full of people that were my family and I didn't feel like I fit in.
That's the biggest thing right there, is not knowing where you fit in. Because
Mhm.
we come from an environment where we can get along with everybody, just about anybody. We didn't have to
Right.
be around you if we didn't want to. But here
Mhm.
it is. We come out, we go into the supermarket. We think people are watching us. You know, of course, well, I'm 6'7". So of course I know people. Well, it took me a while
You're
to
6'7".
understand. Yeah, I'm 6'7".
You don't
So
look that tall. I
yeah,
need you to stand up. No, I'm kidding.
yeah. But see, it took me a while to understand that, hey, you are 6'7". Hey, you are 300 plus pounds. So people are going to look at you like, they're intimidated. But I'm thinking like, oh, these people looking at me because they racist, or no, they just don't like me,
No.
or they must have knew I've been to prison or something. But then people will come up to me and say, hey, you have such the brightest smile. And
Oh.
I'm looking like I don't know how to take a compliment. I'd be like, oh, thanks. And then I'm rolling out. But that was just something I just wasn't used to.
What
I
about
was
somebody rolling
used
up on you and hugging you real quick? Like,
to
oh, Keenan. You're like, whoa, whoa, I'm going to get a sector. Get off me. Yeah.
yeah,
You're like,
right. You know
whoa,
what I'm
don't
saying?
touch.
You don't want to hug because then they talk about, oh, you touched them. No, I ain't touched you. You ain't charging me up, But
Yeah.
that was just some of the things you gotta have to get used to. Some people just don't, some people are, afraid of that transition. Mm-hmm.
And I
They're
think
afraid
that
of something
there's
new.
understanding with each other because inside we do. I don't know about the men's prison, but in the women's prison we do share our traumas in our life that's happened. We do talk about the abuse we went through. We have commonality with other women in there who went through domestic violence, who went through sexual abuse. And sometimes it's the first time women, I know especially in the women's prison, it's the first time maybe they've spoke about it to somebody, that they've allowed their trauma to come out. And so, and some of those women are coming out where that trauma happened. And so now they're just being re-traumatized. Not only have they been in prison, now I'm coming home where all this happened to me. And so I think that trauma is a huge reason for recidivism rate.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
that's
I'm in
powerful.
total agreement.
Yeah, because in a men's prison, like I guess women are more sentimental. They're more calmer. I mean, even though y'all probably have your dramas
Of
and
course
stuff,
we are.
but with men, of course, we were taught even as kids, no, you man up. You don't talk about your feelings or emotions.
Mhm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So it's crazy because one time, an old head named Smiley Akbar, um, you know who Smiley Akbar is. One
yeah,
time he
yeah. I
told me
know somebody out there.
because he's the one who taught me. He said, "Yo, you never let somebody see your feelings in prison."
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is, one time, I was doing something. I was taking a shower or something, right? And I told somebody, I was like, yo, I screamed at the door. I was like, yo, tell what's your call him to pass me something or blah, blah, blah. And somebody got on the door, was like, shut the hell up. Right? So then I responded, yeah, you come shut me up. Come to the shower. I'll put you there. I started going like that. So what happened was later on that day, Smiley Akbar came and told me. He said, yo, kid, he said, Biggie. They call me Biggie Smalls. They said, hey, Biggie. Yeah, they call me Biggie. They say, hey, Biggie. He said, yo, man. He said, man, I heard you on the door early, man. You was yelling at somebody, man. He said, don't you ever let nobody see your emotions in prison. And I was thinking that I was just grinding. He said, nah, because if you show people your emotions, you're going to always show them how they can get to you.
Mm.
So it was in a lot of ways where I learned. I said, Dad, he made a good point. Because if somebody knows how they can get to you every time, they got the power over you. But if they don't know what's going to affect you, they just not going to deal. Like, nah, I can't mess with this person.
Well,
But
that's
That's why
women's
people need to
prison
watch
too.
this show.
That's
Because
in the women's
you can use
prison.
that everywhere. That's
In the
sage
women's prison,
wisdom.
we're like that. We're like that in some aspects. So, but being roommates, we might share our trauma for the first time with somebody we feel like we're close to. But we still are taught not to show our emotions in certain aspects because women will use it against you. Because sometimes you have to be careful about sharing yourself in prison because you might be like, I lost my kids. And the first time you get in an argument, that's why you don't have your kids. Yeah, So you do have to be
That's
careful. You already
true.
know. You have to be careful
Yeah.
about what you do share. But mainly, I think you have to never show your emotions to officers because if they know they can get to you by kicking in your room, talking to you a certain way, they push that button. They keep pushing that button. And so, I think that in the women's prison, though, like I said, sometimes it's the first time people do talk about their traumas. But how many classes did you take? And maybe you shared those traumas, or people are for the first time in therapy in prison. They shared their traumas, but I think that for women, it's a little bit different in that aspect of closeness.
Well, I want to say
So
that
I'll say
transcends to
this.
the
I want to
threefold.
say this in regards to acting on your emotions. Like as a man and as a woman, when you have emotions that's in direct conflict with your true morals and beliefs and your aspirations in life, if it goes against that, you gotta murder those thoughts instantly because at the end of the day, it's not going to benefit you. And the whole thing about your makeup, it goes against. So you got to go away with them emotions. I'm not going to get mad because I know this bull or this CO is trying to trick me out my position in life. You trying to get me to jump in the fire. I'm not dealing with those type of emotions that's going to, okay, so no, I'm not going to allow my emotions to dictate my speech and action. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? No matter how mad something got me, how much I uh agree with somebody actions or speech, I'm not going to allow that to make me invest in my failures. It's not happening.
And real quick, now, like I don't know how it is, like you said, like with the women prison where you were at, where Machina and Miss Sarita were at, but here in Pennsylvania, right, they have a prison that's a classification jail called Camp Hill, right? So something happened years ago, I guess it was at the riot or whatever the case may be. But Camp Hill makes it so hard for new intakes, meaning when you come through a certain jail, like most people come through Graterford and go to the classification jail, the guards are going to test you, meaning they're going to yell at you, scream you, call out your name, everything, just to show you and assert dominance to let you know that they run the camp. They don't care. But a lot of people fail because they're not used to the authority figures. They're not used to being told what to do. So
What happened when they fell? You got to tell them what happened when they
the
fell.
guards came, they beat you up, they took you to the hole, they made sure you didn't eat for a week.
Tell them that.
And they wait for you. You ain't getting no pen, no paper. You can't write home. Things like that.
Tell them that part.
Is this still happening?
And they'll laugh at you.
Sounds like that's how the workhouse was in St. Louis. That sounds like they shut that down.
It's a tactic.
Do you remember? You remember what they tell you When they strip searching you,
What do they say?
okay, they say, put your hands behind your back and don't move your hands from behind your back until we tell you to do. Now, don't do nothing that we don't tell you to do, and do everything that we tell you to do as we tell you to do it. And if
Wow.
you do anything else, it's
Else.
going to be taken as an act of aggression, and
Yeah.
it will be dealt with accordingly.
Accordingly.
And then they tell you to do the acts that they tell you to do them in the way they just explained them. It's so weird. And when
Yeah.
you do something other than what they tell you to do,
They
they
beat you
beat
up.
you.
They jump on you. But see,
They,
but now
they,
they've
they,
recently changed that. They started recording a lot of this now because there have been lawsuits where people start
Good,
putting a lot of these lawsuits and things
good.
like they started recording it. But as far as Camp Hill's concerned, the classification jail, yeah, they still gonna talk to you fly and things like that because they want to let you know, look, you don't run this thing.
Well, I
Yeah.
think every
Mhm.
prison, all the guards talk to you because they want to have that power and that control. They
That's
all try to give you
Yeah.
that. I mean, that's why I spent the first 10 years in and out of the hole. Most
right.
of my violations were insulting behavior to staff because
Mhm.
I would get right back with them. And of course, my famous words are still to this day. Do you know who the F you're talking to? They'd be like, do you know who you're talking to? So it never worked out well for me. But, but I had a captain one day tell me, he sit me down, he said, listen, I'm not taking you the whole, I'm actually going to send you to mental health. And
Wow.
he said, because you're not getting it. No matter what, we will always win. Even if I'm wrong and you're right, I will still win. You're
I
going
heard.
to the hole and I still go home at night. And
Yeah.
I still took me another 3 or 4 years of insulting behaviors. And I even
Mhm.
had one time I tried to fight a staff member. I mean, it just, I was a punk kid when I went in. So, but it did take years to learn no matter what, they were going to win. And I just needed to, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
and
Yes,
it
ma'am.
wasn't even just accepting that you can lose against them, but it was more so of a mental thing. Like, why am I letting this person get to me? Why
Yep.
I'm allowing them to get under my skin from the things that they're saying? I'm
Yep.
smarter than that. So
Right,
that
right.
Yeah.
teaches
I, I,
that breeds the self control.
Because
You know what
once I
I'm
stopped reacting to them, they
saying?
stopped picking. It took a
Exactly.
minute, but when I found that peace and I stopped reacting to what they were doing, then all of a sudden I found inner peace. I didn't care if you kicked in my room. I didn't have contraband no more. I didn't care if you pat searched me. I ain't got nothing on me. Well, sometimes I might have a pack of tuna I was taking to my friend, but whatever. So, but I got violations for percolating, laughing
Not
too loud, reckless eyeballing. I mean, so
mhm.
they do take. I
Wow.
got for insulting behavior. I rolled my eyes when they said something. So I mean, sometimes they do take things to extreme that it's just like
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
But that kind of talks
I
about what
know,
Bayot
I
was
know.
saying. Bayot said that. He's like, hey, don't let your emotions take over. And I'm
Mhm.
trying to tell you, the same is out here. Because sometimes I feel like people will take that, hey, she's been to prison and she doesn't want to go, and they'll take it for weakness. So I'll just have to, play my position and be okay with that. Because guess
Especially
what?
if they
I'm
know
not.
you're on parole. Your family sometimes will even say, I will call your parole board. I will call your parole officer. That happens in recidivism too. People
Mm.
get scared because their families are saying, hey, I know you're on parole. I'll call your parole officer. Oh, you want to break up with me? You don't want to be together no more? You want to be with that other girl? I'm going to call your parole officer. So people
Mhm.
also walk in fear, like walking on glass on parole, because anybody could get upset,
Mm.
and it not even be true, and call your parole officer. And next thing you know, you're sitting back in prison. I mean, we
Right.
know people. I know I've known people it's rolled back over relationships or,
Yeah.
things that they weren't even doing, but girlfriend got mad, boyfriend got mad, called the parole officer, or mom and dad got mad because you didn't come in on time. So they called your parole officer and they're rolled back.
Yeah, yeah. That's the biggest thing. Like you said, those relationships. I've seen a lot of individuals go back over them women, whether they playing a lot of different sides of the park, but it's always was over some relationship where the girl got mad. She knew she had one up on him because she knew that he was staying with her. He
Hmm.
was staying at her house. Again, going back to individuals that don't want to accept that responsibility. They just want to leech off of somebody. Now you playing with them, you got to play by their rules. So you come in that house late if you want. She calling a parole. Yeah, he hit me. That's all it takes.
Oh
Oh
man.
yeah, well yeah, he did X Y Z. He touched my daughter. He
Yep.
touched my uncle.
You know that
or
that really
there you
touches
go
because a man just committed suicide in this town over that.
over
He
that.
had been locked up, I think, like 15 years. Got out, was doing so good, and the one he just committed suicide like 6 months ago.
Wow.
That's real because let me tell you, I could never imagine anything that would bring me back to the penitentiary, and I just couldn't imagine even going there. Not to say that I just couldn't even imagine. But yeah, that's a thing. And people just don't realize you are playing with someone's life. You're playing with their life.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I got an argument after I got out with my uncle because he was treating my grandmother poorly, and of course I'm gonna stick up because I don't play with anybody I love. Okay, that's a no. And so when I stood up to him, he's like, "I'll just call your parole officer." So
Mm,
immediately I just fall in myself like, oh my gosh. And so, and people will use that same as people in that hire felons. Some people will pay you lower, threaten you with parole officer. Jobs will do it too.
wow. Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. But I'll tell you one thing. I thank God that we all learned our lessons and we have a clear thought process about, you know, what's going on out here, what goes on inside. Because there's some people that can't think straight. There's some people still trying to cope with life. There's some people that still trying to figure out how to get to a job interview. But here it is. We never gave up at all. It may
Yeah.
have took us a little time. We may have been, a little scared about certain things and worried about how people may have judged us or look at us after they learned that, hey, we've been in prison. But I ain't gonna lie. Now it's like, hey, I'm free to share my
Yeah.
testimony. Hey, it's what I've been through.
Yep.
This where I came from. Look, I got a book published. I got another book on the way. So what's up? Does your family member need help? Because I'm quite sure all of us know somebody that's on the way to prison or either in prison or coming
Right.
home from prison. So
Yep.
talk to me. I could probably be their resource or their help, versus you trying to judge or point the finger. Because I'm quite sure that a lot of us probably accomplished way more than some people that haven't never even been to prison. Period.
Yeah,
But what do you
You know what I'm
think?
saying?
When you're thinking a recidivism rate too, is it the long timers that are going back?
No.
No,
No.
absolutely
No.
not.
The
It's
ones who committed one terrible crime,
That's it.
committed that one terrible crime. It was a mitigating circumstance that probably brought them to that place that for me, I committed, accessory to murder, Sarita, y'all, we committed this crime and this one time. It wasn't a series of crimes, but the people that are in and out of prison that keep the recidivism rate up and down are mainly addicts.
Yeah.
Short
So
term.
quit throwing them in prison. And if they don't recidivism, then they're dying because they come home thinking they can do the same amount of stuff they did before they went in. And so next thing you know, you either hear we lost this one due to an addiction or they're back in prison. And of course, I don't want anybody to go back to prison, but I'd rather they go back to prison where I know they're sober than die on the streets back in their addiction. But if we would start treating prisons like a therapeutical center and start addressing the traumas and the things that lead to addiction, those short timers aren't going to keep coming in and out because you're going to let them start navigating through their trauma and what's bringing them back to prison every time.
That's
Mhm.
But
supposed to be
instead, they'd rather fill the
rehabilitation.
bed and get the money because it's a
Yeah.
business.
Rehabilitation. What is
yes,
if
yes,
you're in
yes.
physical pain and they send you to a rehab center, you're gonna be doing physical therapy. So if I've committed a crime and I'm supposed to be going to the penitentiary to be rehabilitated, where's the rehabilitation? I'm gonna lock you down, I'm gonna count you, I'm gonna make sure you got a prison job, and then you take it from there when you hit them gates.
But I don't know about you guys where you're at, Keenan and Bayot, but in Missouri, we are having so many overdoses within the prison. So you're sending addicts in the prison who are ODing and dying here now. I mean, the drugs are terrible within our prison system as well. So when you
Yes.
send an addict there, and now they're there doing drugs there. And so when they come back out, they're still doing drugs.
And just to add, the saddest thing about that is, right, and I know a lot of people would say, oh well, who's bringing the drugs in? They try to blame it on this visitation. They
Oh
try
no.
to blame it on, oh, they know somebody. But little do they know that them captains and
Tell it.
lieutenants
Tell it.
and them sergeants
Tell it.
are not as professional as a lot of people think.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And here it is. They're the main people that's bringing it in.
Well, they've taken books. You can't get a
In
In
book
Missouri,
now.
we can't get
You
books
can't
or
get
nothing anymore.
mail. So when they took out the mail, because it was supposed to be coming through the mail, now you can't even get a book. How are there now? There's more overdoses and deaths than
More.
before.
I was about
More
to
than
say that.
before.
I just was about to say
More than
that.
before. So how's
It was
how's
flooded
it
even
getting in
more.
there? Even during COVID time, they say it was a lot of overdose. So how's it getting in there then?
At
Right.
least once a month in Missouri, we have seen in the last year somebody, an officer, is getting arrested for bringing stuff into the institution.
Wow.
But here you're paying these people this minimal money, and somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'll give you 2,000 a week if you bring me this much Suboxone and fentanyl meth." What do you think they're going to do? Of course they are.
That's it. Wow, that's powerful. Yeah. So, any other questions? I see we had some comments here. Well, Brandy and them said good evening. Yeah, Net he said good evening.
Good
Lee,
evening.
I
Good
appreciate
evening.
y'all guys. Love, man, all love. This brother Leek right
No
there.
doubt.
We was down with us as well. Appreciate you tuning in, Leek. Yeah, a lot of people. I'm
What's
telling
up, bro?
yeah, a lot of people
Assalamu
really benefit off of these broadcasts, even though sometimes people pop in, pop out. But I'm telling you, people are really enjoying this. Like
Good.
that's why we got to constantly
Well,
continue.
and I wanted to ask Sheena to talk a little bit more about PrEP. PREP. It's something we're trying to get off the ground here in Missouri, and it's based around stopping recidivism in families. And I don't think we really took a time for it, but Bea, I feel like it's got a lot to do with the love of life too. So before we
Tell me
go,
about it. Let us hear it.
Okay. Well, Prep for Release is preparing rehabilitated, exceptional people for release. So, what we want to do is start being a resource place where we are helping people get jobs, transportation, your basic reentry. But what we want to do different is, say you're coming home, Bea, and you're paroling to your sister. We want 6 months, maybe even longer before you come home. We want to start talking to you and your sister about what are the fears? What are things that you're going to go through when you come home to prepare your family member for
Yes.
what's about to
Yes.
happen? You're coming
Yes.
home, and just because he needs to lock in his room for a day doesn't mean he doesn't love you. He's not glad he's home, but these are things that he needs. We want to help people understand that, coming home sometimes is harder than going in, that you coming home are a different person. So with Prep for Release, we want to just take that moment and really concentrate on what it means to really reenter. Instead of giving people a list of jobs that hire felons, we want to actually, hopefully, pair up with caseworkers and say, hey, can we do a Zoom job interview a couple weeks before they get out? And then the employers can say, what's their institutional record? What are they doing while they're there? Getting people more involved to know that there are people inside who work hard to change. And if they give them a chance when they come out, they'll be glad to have them, because we're hard workers for sure.
Okay. So to be honest, that is definitely in accordance with the love of life, because furthermore on that is the transitional housing, where we actually have our own facility where we are the facilitators and we contacting these people and saying, yes, we setting up a visit for Eric Robertson because
Yeah.
chick is coming home,
Yep.
so this is the vision that we have to have in regards to doing what we actually have the power to do. you know we're all, like we say, returning citizens, and we have the knowledge and know-how. If we don't, one of us on here do know how we can start a nonprofit organization and then bubble from there in regards to effectuating positive change in people's lives that's in the box and helping them get back out here with us.
Right.
Absolutely. I
Absolutely.
love that. And,
Powerful.
Me
that's
too.
how we feel. All of our people that are with Prep for Release is actually returning citizens because we know what we need. We know what someone needs coming home. A couple of our members are actually family members who can give the insight of what it is for family that are going through the same thing. So we're just supporting them in every way we can. We're just getting off the ground. Our boots are in the foundation. We're building the foundation. But I really want to get a transitional house that brings violent offenders home that
Me
nobody
too.
else will take
Yeah.
because they won't take transitional
Yep.
houses doesn't take the violent offenders. I'd much rather have somebody that did 25 years for murder than the person that just robbed and burned somebody's house down over meth. I want the other
Absolutely.
guy. So those are the people that Prep for Release really want to, because like I keep saying, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people were sentenced to come home. They're coming home now.
Yeah.
So we need transitional houses that are especially for that type of
Designed for them.
returning
Yeah.
citizens because we
Yeah.
deal with things differently coming home. Like we said, we talked about the soda machines are weird. I had to watch YouTube videos how to make coffee. Just voices. I
Yeah.
mean, all kinds of things that seem small to other people are very big to people like us who did all this time. Gas was $1 when I got locked up, and now I'm paying $2.99. Like what? It's just simple things of how to fill out an application. I was the same way as that other girl. Don't they have any paper applications? And everybody's like, no, you gotta go online. You gotta go online.
Mhm.
I was so
Mhm.
frustrated. I didn't know how to fill one out online.
Yep.
Mhm.
I didn't even
And
know
Mhm.
how to answer my
upload.
phone. I just kept screaming at it. Answer, answer. I didn't know.
Mhm.
That reminds me, I ripped the
But I
top off
love that.
the
We
security
definitely need
tag.
to connect off here too, Bayat, and let's talk about some things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's great.
Um, I don't know. At the end of the day, we going to magnify our voices and we're going to amplify the impacts that we're going to have in
Mhm.
people's lives. That's just what it is. It's so crazy because I wrote this book when I was at retreat, and this book is just waiting to be implemented in so many ways. And it's not just a book because it's a learning tool for, it's called Keys to Success Making Parole and Successfully Completing Parole. And it's not only for an individual that's incarcerated, but it's for the family member or friend and support system of someone that's incarcerated.
Mhm.
So it's just so in line with everything that y'all got going on. And it's never for me, you, or any of us to hoard any knowledge on how to succeed or stop someone from falling in that pitfall that we succumb to.
I think the
Yeah,
reason we all align is because we all know what we needed when we came home that we didn't get. And
absolutely.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Yeah.
that's the ones that are making the changes as us as returning citizens. We are making it better for returning citizens by going to legislation and advocating for law change,
Yeah.
even if
Yeah.
that's taking fines and fees, if that's,
Mhm.
I mean, it could be the smallest thing that people don't think it's a big deal. But when you take fines and fees away when somebody first walks out of prison, it takes a little bit off of them.
Yes.
Mhm.
If you are doing something, that's why it's so important to advocate and get these law changes and get lawmakers that we want in there making decisions, because the returning citizens are the ones that are now building up our communities to be better than they were before.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And that's a wonderful thing. I know we're coming up on the top of the hour. And I also want to add too, so it's a lot of things we can do, especially with this broadcast. And I know we spoke about it in the past, but get individuals who will call in where we can actually
Yeah.
interview them as well on
Yeah.
this broadcast to figure out, hey, and not only for them to share what they may need, but also for us to share, hey, this is what you're going to be facing once you get out of here. So
Mhm.
prepare for this, prepare for that. It's not going to be as simple as, oh, I'm just ready to come home or I want to get out of here. Are you prepared to come out? Are you ready to handle responsibility? If I threw you in an apartment, can you sustain that? Some
Mhm.
people think it's bad to go to a transitional house or it's bad to go to a halfway house. That's
Can't
actually to
pay
help
them
you
bills.
on your feet. You can't
Yeah.
just expect to just go somewhere and just live. You got to get a job first. You got to work your
Yeah.
way. getting somewhere. So
A lot of people don't like transitional houses because they feel like they're still in prison.
prison.
And I understand that. But if you are coming home, if somebody's watching this, you're coming home, or maybe you just got home, you still can go to those transitional houses. Because I know when I first came home, they still offered for me at first to go. And I was just not in a position I could go. I need to take care of my grandmother. But, I think that people need to remember if you ask for the help, you'll get it. But if you go to places where you're struggling all the time, you're not going to get the help. You're going to get the rejection and things like that. These transitional houses have people that work with them to help get jobs. They've already set up, like, established where in the community where people are helping. So allow them to help us come home and reintegrate. Now, if it's not a good place for you, find a different one.
Right.
Not everyone's a match. Just don't be like, oh, screw this. I'm not doing this no more. There's another one. Go down the road. If you got to leave the town where your family is to be successful, go.
Right.
That's what I did. That's what I did. It's a thing when you want a new start. Like, I lived the life that I lived that caused me to be facing the death penalty at 18. I went in the penitentiary and experienced everything I experienced in 25 years. Why would I go home to live that life again? I started off something new. I told parole, I don't care where you send me. I got to take me with me.
That's right.
And no matter where I go, I be me. So I'm going to win. And I gave them my blueprint. And they paroled me my first time up. So I'm not here because of me. I'm here because of the mission that we on.
Absolutely. So if you guys want to touch on a little more, or we can get ready to close this thing out. I know we've been on here for almost an hour. But go ahead, Machina. Go ahead.
I just want to say this, my fiance, he was so good about something he used to say to me and still says to me sometimes. How long did it take you to learn how to navigate prison? And I said, it took me a minute. It took me a minute. He said, then why are you thinking that you need to do it overnight here? You have to learn to navigate out here. You didn't just go into prison and learn everything in one day. It took you time. So he reminds me that, out here is the same. It takes time to navigate and learn who you are and, and fall down sometimes. It's not about the fall downs. Get up, brush your shoulders. Let's go. Because sometimes we may not be exactly where we want to be in life or making the money we want to make it. But if we learn how to navigate in a prison system, in the world, within a world that's the worst place, then we definitely can learn how to navigate out here if you just don't give up. And I think that's the recidivism. People give up too soon when right around the corner, the dawn's coming. And so you just got to keep pushing.
But another part of them giving up is more of the fact that a lot of what I said in regards to what I didn't want to put myself and our people through, y'all, is the fact that you go back to people, places, and things, the same life, and you can separate yourself if you have the financial means to do so and social network. But if you don't, and you right back in Aunt Janine's house, Uncle Ray couch, and you got the room at your aunt house, and this is where everything is happening at. Now you might not be getting involved in certain things in regards to putting this and that in your hand and all that, but you trying to navigate through all that, but at the same time you succumb to something because of people, places, and things. So it's about actually being able to put yourself in position to win. It starts mentally. You have to think your way past these things and these places, because if you don't, some type of way you're going to succumb to it. You're going to succumb to it, and the joker be like, man, I was doing everything right, but it happened. My brother and this, that, and other happened, and he succumbed to it. You got to give yourself a chance. Get away from that life if you don't want to be about that life.
Absolute. But yeah, without further ado, we're here again on the Reentry Connect podcast talking about recidivism. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Here, I'm your host, Keenan Hudson. We have Miss Sheena, Miss Sarita, and we have Bayot Thomas on the line. But without further
The
ado,
love
we're
of
going to
life.
get ready for tonight. It's the love of life. Shout out again to everybody that's been viewing, that's been liking, that's been supporting. Everything is great. Shout out One Day at a Time. Old Dad again. Tune in to the services. Shout out to Mel Wells. Old Dad, Philadelphia again. And then we have GPS Transportation, Philadelphia. Remember that? Transportation come if you were to come to the city of Philadelphia, take care of every need from everywhere from wheelchair to party buses to whatever you name. But until next time, without further ado, I appreciate everybody. Take care. Peace.